Hello friends, this is Jim with Science Talk. I have some interesting news from the world of paleontology is one story, and of a very strange plant from the rainforest is another story. First, let's talk about new fossil that has been found. This is one of the tiniest ancient birds. It lived alongside the dinosaurs. About 127 million years ago, tiny birds about the size of grasshoppers lived alongside some of the largest animals on Earth, namely the large sauropod dinosaurs. When this bird was alive, it was about no more than 5 centimeters in length, that's about 2 inches, weighed about 8.5 grams, which is about 3/10 of an ounce, and one of the smallest birds. What is really interesting and exciting about this particular find is that nearly all this tiny bird's fossilized skeleton has been preserved. So it's a paleontological treasure, basically. And this bird belongs to a group that's called the Enantiornithes. I'll say that again, Enantiornithes. Okay. It is a now extinct subclass of birds, and it tended to have teeth and clawed fingers on their wings. This is a very interesting find because it's showing the transition, or at least keeping some of the characteristics that might be more associated with, say, theropod dinosaurs like Velociraptor, Utahraptor, and so forth, where they had teeth and claws. But we're seeing now that there's clawed fingers on the wings, a la like pteranodon, pterodactyls, and so forth. Now, it is not clear if this new specimen is a new species or whether it belongs to a previously identified species such as Concornus lacustris or Iberomyssornis romerali, which also are other Enantiornithes birds. The researchers use what's called synchrotron radiation in order to make images of the tiny specimen at the submicron level. The analysis revealed that this bird died shortly after it hatched from its egg. In addition, the bird's sternum, which is basically breastbone, hadn't yet developed into hard, solid bone and is still made mostly of cartilage. This means that this bird probably was not able to fly at the time it died. Moreover, the patterns of ossification, which is hardening of the bone, typically we have cartilage, then the cartilage gets replaced by bone and ossification becomes ossified. So the patterns of ossification in the bird are quite different from those of other young Enantiornithine birds discovered over the years. So the suggestion is that the developmental strategies of this group of avians, ancient avians, was more diverse than previously thought. Now, it is not clear if, even though this newfound specimen was not able to fly, it's not clear if it was still dependent on its parents. Okay. Some modern birds are what we call altricial, meaning they need their parents to care for them, as opposed to organisms that are precocious, where they really do not need much parental care once they hatch and so forth and are off and going. Think, for example, a lot of sharks. Most sharks, in fact just about all sharks, are precocial. They hatch and they're off on their own, swimming about doing what sharks do. A lot of birds nowadays are altricial. They need the parents to help them grow until they fledge, and then they can leave the nest and so forth. Another interesting thing was that, another fossil find, was that at about the same time this bird was around, which is about 127 million years ago, there are also fossil remains show that a water bird actually hucked up the first fossilized bird pellet. Now, a bird pellet will typically contain undigested material such as fur, bones from whatever it ate. Think of owls when they huck up a pellet. When you look through the pellet, you pretty much find those types of items. The new study about this bird is now housed at the Museum of Paleontology of Castilla-La Mancha in Cuenca, Spain, and it can be found in the March 5th edition of the journal Nature Communications. Very exciting. Find a almost intact specimen, and with the features that are found, teeth and clawed fingers on the wings. Very exciting. Now the next story, kind of switching gears a bit. This is a very interesting type of plant. It's the headline, I'll read it to you. It's bizarre parasitic, quote-unquote, fairy lantern reappears in the rainforest after 151 years. A strange plant that needs no sunlight and basically relies on underground fungi for nutrients has turned up in Borneo, Malaysia, 151 years after it was first documented. Thismia neptunus is what's called a myco-heterotroph. Myco refers to fungus, heterotroph basically refers to eating. So this is basically a fungus eater. So this is basically a group of plant species that has given up photosynthesis entirely in favor of living as parasites. They grow no functional leaves and do most of the work they need to survive underground. Thismia neptunus is most easily identified by its sexual organ, which is a small, about 9 centimeters, approximately 3.5 inches, flower that pokes out of the ground. So instead, it grows in the wet dirt of a rainforest that is in basically what's called a riparian zone. Riparian zones are zones associated with wetlands, rivers, streams, that kind of stuff. The Italian botanist Odoardo Beccari first documented the little flowering plant in 1866. He made some interesting detailed drawings of the unusual shape, and it was that work that helped us, the researchers that just found the specimen, identify it. To our knowledge, it is only the second finding of the species in total. The team of Czech researchers wrote in a paper in the journal Phytotaxa. It has a smooth stem, with a kind of whitish color. It protrudes from the ground from a simple system of roots designed to absorb nutrients from underground fungus. Its bulb can best be described as looking like a swollen thumb, but it is pale in colored. There might be some red striping on it, and has an opening at the tip, sort of looks like a sea worm. But it is not green. It does not do photosynthesis. The chlorophyll, the green pigmentation of chlorophyll, is what makes plants green. But since it's not doing photosynthesis, it's not going to have these colors. Researchers say they do not know how this plant pollinates, how it reproduces. They did find 2 species of dead fly inside the flower, which may act as pollinators. Or perhaps, and I am speculating here, perhaps it is behaving something like a Venus flytrap, where it might gain additional nutrients from ingesting insects. Although, if they are pollinators, it then would not do the plant well to eat a species that could help propagate itself. Myco-heterotrophs like T. neptunus are sort of the kinder, if you will, of the two sorts of parasitic plants that do not utilize sunlight. The fungi they drink from do attach to nearby photosynthesizing plants, but the microheterotrophs do not attack those plants directly. So they may be obtaining some nutrients indirectly from those neighboring plants. Now, this is a different behavior or different lifestyle pattern than from what's called the hastorial parasites, which will actually inject or their roots directly into the plants they directly live on. It is not known the range of T. neptunus, how far it extends, or how its range has changed since 1866. Beccari did not leave detailed information on that aspect, but it is interesting that after 151 years, this plant has been rediscovered. Remember, most of its life cycle is spent on the ground with presumably a flowering organ or appendage protruding from the ground, and it could easily be missed if you're not closely observant or looking for it. So there are still things out there in nature that we have not found, we have not documented, and so this is another important reason why we do need to preserve ecosystems, because we do not know what benefits we can derive from organisms. Think of all the medicines we have that are derived from plants, just to give you something to think about. Thank you for your time. Please share this video. Please subscribe, hit the bell. I hope you consider supporting my work by going to patreon.com/Science Talk with Jim Massa and become a patron. If you are already a patron, thank you for your support and continued support. Take care.